Shalom, Kol Halal, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops. Salutations to all my fellow laborers that do this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than never. The would-be judges, the 144,000, and the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, among the heathen nations that have the appearance of the heathen nations, the Israelite foreigners. This is not a black thing. And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And this is Shahid Bolson and another epic video, another epic speech. And this guy is absolutely annihilating Edomite superiority, all right, which is this made up people who refer to themselves as white today, which is a completely total false made up social engineering tactic, because there's no such thing as white people. They're actually red. They're the Edomites. They're pale. Their blood shows forth through their skin. Esau means wasted away as he, and their name was changed to Edom when they ate the red bloody meat. All right, when their forefather Esau did. So his nickname, or another name for him, became Edom, and the sons of Edom became known as the Edomites. And the Edomites today are the people who call themselves Caucasian, who call themselves white, collectively. Because you have to remember, there's a lot of, Israelite seed among them, and vice versa. So every so-called white person, isn't, an Edomite. Just like every so-called brown person isn't a Israelite, as far as the Negroes, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are concerned. All right, there are a lot of, I'm going to get to that. But first, let me read this. All right, let me open the scripture with this. One of my favorites. And this is Isaiah 28 and 15. And it reads, wait a minute, not Isaiah. Isaiah 29. 15. Yeah, Isaiah 28, 29. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yahweh, and their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us? And who knoweth us? All right. So they tried, they came with this pseudoscience of white superiority and created this, this blackness and whiteness, and created this, this whole Asian thing, the black, white, and the yellow man. All right, and there's really no such thing. People are different shades of brown, swarthy, and people are different shades of red. And that would be pale people, Edomites. It's as simple as that, because the whole world is swarthy or tawny. You know what I mean? It's from a dark chocolate to a light brown to a or what you would call yellow. Yellow is a derivative of brown. And the small population, it could collectively, of people who are actually pale. All right, that would be, so-called white race. And this is Isaiah 25 and 7, and it reads, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. And I read this because he's going to say some things that are very true. And then he's going to say some things that are a little off, because either he doesn't know or he just doesn't want to speak on it. That the fact that white people aren't white and black people are actually brown, physically, visibly, when you look at them, brown complexion. All right. So once again, black and white are social, falsely created social, engineering. Okay, so without any further ado, Mr. Shahid Bolson.
It's a well-known issue. that African Americans, black people in America, so-called, don't know their history, that they're cut off from the history of Africa, and even the history of everything that they did and everything that was done to them in America. That's why you have Black History Month, right? So this is something that everyone knows about. Everyone is aware of this issue. But the truth is that so-called white people don't know their history either. Their history in America or their history in Europe. Americans generally don't know history.
And this is very true. Because Europe sits in Asia. There's no such thing as Europe. They created that. The Bible speaks about Asia and all over Asia. When it speaks about Italy and Spain, it's in Asia. Europe sits in Asia. So let me provide a receipt for anyone who might be new. Someone who's watching for the first time. And they're probably like, what? He crazy? He talking about there's no Europe? No. They call it Europe. So here's a definition of Eurasian from the Winston Simplified Dictionary Encyclopedia Edition with biblical references, 1931. No, actually, this is from the Oxford. This is from the Oxford Dictionary, 1850s. That's where this one's from. But Eurasian, all right. Europe, a compound Eurasia. Definition number 1. Of or pertaining to Eurasia, to Europe and Asia, considered as forming in reality one continent. All right. European and Asiatic. So there you go. You look at the map of Europe, it sits in Asia. The so-called Middle East sits in Asia. All these were created to, for the social construct of this false ideology of something called white superiority. All right. So I'm going to read from the book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, and then we'll go back to Mr. Shaid Bolson. So let's go. This is the book Babylon, From Babylon to Timbuktu, written by scholar Rudolph R. Windsor. Page 20. And it reads, the ancient people did not classify races according to skin color, like the modern nations of Europe and America. And so, and who rules in Europe and America? Exactly. The ancients, including the Greeks and Romans, identified people to their national or tribal names. They used such names as Visigoths, Vandals, Saxons, Ethiopians, Carthaginians, Jews, Arabs, Persians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Moors. Those are all still afterthought names. It was because everyone had biblical names. These names really came about, when Esau came into power and started renaming everything and everyone. They did not use the term Negro, which is a modern term to refer to black races, all right? And once again, no one is black. And he's also letting you know there are many, he said, races. There are many swarthy races. Africans and Negroes are not the same people. I repeat, Africans and Negroes are not the same people. Africans are typically Hamitic people. The Hamitic people lived throughout the entire, from Egypt all the way down to the southern tip of Africa and past Africa into Western Asia, which they fraudulently and falsely call the Middle East today. Right? That was the land of Canaan. Canaan is a son of Ham. Ham is the father of the dark races, not the Negroes, not the Negroid races, different race of people. Before I continue to read, let's provide that receipt. All right, this is from the, and the book's on the shelf, but I have it in my phone. All right, but this is Ham, the youngest son of Noah, progenitor, meaning father of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Canaan sits in Western Asia, what they fraudulently call the Middle East today. The Middle East was occupied by Africans, and they spoke the language of Canaan, which was also Hebrew. All right, they spoke the same language that the Hebrews spoke. We're going to get scriptures on that. All right. Back into Rudolph R. Windsor's books, and you understand why I read that. It says to refer to the black races, which we now know that term is fraudulent and made up. Black was a hijack for the word swarthy. And I've done extensive videos on black means, dirty, ugly, untrustworthy, dangerous, and all these negative things. That's why they use the term black. Okay. It says dividing the world along a color line was an idea that originated with the white supremacists in Europe after the Renaissance. Europeans did not have any great civilization immediately after the fall of Greece and Rome. Matter of fact, they took over Greece and Rome. Okay, that was done through Alexander of Macedon. Okay, this is still on page 21. This is on page 21 in Rudolph R. Windsor's book From Babylon to Timbuktu. It says during the Middle Ages, the black nations of Africa and Asia. All right, I'm just gonna replace that word with swarthy. I hate saying that word, especially understanding and knowing what it means. During the Middle Ages, the swarthy nations of Africa and Asia, so he's letting you know that Asia was full of, there are people in India that is just as dark or darker than some Africans. All right, we talked about that. The people in Indonesia, and including the Chinese and the Japanese, if you go back long enough. All right, they didn't really get light complected, light brown and yellow, or some of them even look white until they intermixed, so-called white, with Edomites. Over the last 150 years or so. But you go back long enough, and you see they're just as dark as Negroes. And there's still people in all over Asia, even in the Far East Asia, that still are that dark. During the Middle Ages, the swarthy nations of Africa and Asia had the greatest political, economic, educational, and military influence in the world. At this time, Europe existed, Western Asia, existed in a state of darkness for 1,000 years. In the 17th century, and later, Europe began to emerge out of the slough of ignorance, and certain Germans and others conceived of themselves as belonging to a superior race. And this is Johann F. Blumenbach, a German from 1752 to 1840, was the first to divide humanity on the basis of skin color. Up to this time, there was no such attempts had been made. And this is true. In the ancient world, they didn't care what your color was. What they cared was what the father, the bloodline, the seed line. All right? Because dark men had pale children, and pale men had dark children from all the intermarrying with the swarthy nations. Okay? And vice versa. So your skin color wasn't an issue in the ancient world. That's a new age thing when Edom came into power and named a portion of Asia, Europe, all right? And then in the 1800s, they named another portion of Asia, the Middle East. All this would support their white lies, all right? It says, up to this time, no such attempts have been made. His classification set up the color line to the detriment of later generations. Mr. Blumenbach classified 5 chief races of mankind: the Caucasian, the Mongolian, the Ethiopian, and the American Indians. The Malayan, moreover, he considered a Caucasian to be the original race. Blumenbach, the anthropologist, he twisted and lied with everything, because everyone knows that you can't get brown out of pale, but you can get pale out of brown. There are too many. You can just go on YouTube right now, go on the internet and Google dark parents have pale baby, or you have to put in black parents or dark people, dark complexion people have white baby. All right, it happens. Okay, not the other way around. No two pale people are going to produce a brown child unless the woman slept with the brown man behind the pale man's back. Period. Which happens a lot. It says, Blumenbach, the anthropologist, named the whites after the Caucasus Mountains, and they're not even from Asia. All right, they came from, they came, actually they came, I stand corrected. They came from Jordan, all right, in Mount Seir, Petra, which is in what they fraudulently call the Middle East, right, in the land of Georgia, which is just below south of Israel. They didn't come from the mountains of Asia, near the Caucasus Mountains. Has nothing to, so the Caucasus Mountains had nothing to do with complexion, all right? So that was the marrying pseudoscience, false science. Timothy warned us about that. Is that 1 Timothy 6:20? O Timothy, 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called. And so that's exactly what Johann Blumenbach did. Pseudoscience, false science. And what he did eventually is that through his lies about race, they connected Ham, Shem, and Japheth with the Negroid, the Caucasoid, and the Mongoloid. All right, so basically that's what they're doing when they try to say that people in Europe is a part of Asia. Asia has always been swarthy and tawny. All right, read Ben Franklin's letter from 1751. All right, and then they try to say that the white people came from the Caucasus Mountains, and that everybody, and then the other people were Mongoloids, and they were just brown and yellow, which is all a lie. All right, but it says these is speaking on the Caucasus Mountains. These mountains are situated between the Black and Caspian Sea, because he thought the purest, so-called white people originated there. Blumenbach was a racist, and so was J.A. Gobineau, the third man by the name of H.S. Chamberlain, wanted to advance white supremacy and white Nordic race and its culture. So they created all these things, right? There's no Nordic in the Bible, and those people and when you check the records, the people that lived all through those lands were dark. The Vikings were not so-called white people. So once again, what these men did was they connected Ham, Shem, and Japheth to Negroid, Caucasoid, and Mongoloid. So this is chapter 3, page 26 in this book, from Babylon to Timbuktu. All right, and it makes me think about the intro from Who is Esau Edom, when it says this material presents the strong meat of God's word, which was intended to edify and nourish strong Christians. It thus is specifically intended for those who have the advanced stage of understanding the racial perspective of the Bible. All right, and the racial perspective of the Bible had nothing to do with color. It had everything to do with bloodlines. All right. Okay, so it says Sumerians and Babylonians and Ethiopians were black. We know that means swarthy. All right, and where were these Sumerians and Babylonians were where? Were in Western Asia. All right, where the Canaanites were. They contributed much to the advancement of civilization because they studied astrology. They were capable of formulating many principles of astronomy. These black people, swarthy people, were gracious and skillful that they were able to divide the years into months, weeks, hours, minutes, seconds. In mathematics, they developed the decimal system. Remember, it was Abraham, according to the Josephus, that brought mathematics to the Hamites. The most famous of the Babylonian kings was Harumbai, who ruled about 2150 BC. He was outstanding for his codification of the system of laws founded on retaliation as the punitive measure for crime. He also established a 7-day week, which the last day or Shabbat. So this was the Israelite that did this and not some African. This idea was adopted by the Hebrews. No, it was not. This was the laws in the Bible. So that was a fabrication. And then transmitted to the Greeks, Romans, and other Europeans. All right. The literature of the Babylonians is quite interesting. Long ago, these black people, swarthy, wrote with a sharp instrument on clay tablets. Thousands of these tablets have been found. Some have disclosed a popular work known as Enuma Elish Creation Epic, the story of how the world began, derived from the Babylonians, which is a lie. The Tower of Babel, it says, after dispersal of mankind, the Tower of Babel, which is found in that story, is found in the Bible, had nothing to do with Babylonians. All right. After the dispersal of mankind, the Tower of Babel, the Black Hamites, there's only one way to be, because they came up with a Hamitic theory and said that the North African, Africans were pale. That was something called the Hamitic theory that these racist Edomites came up with, which is a complete and total lie. The relics prove that. Said these Black Hamites settled in the land of Canaan. Later on it was called Israel. That is true. The land of Canaan is named from the youngest son of Ham. We just read about that. All right. So we know that the Canaanites, because they always show you Goliath and his people as white people, and guess what? Goliath and his people go back to Canaan. All right. His son Philistim. So so that's another lie that they caught in. Okay. The Canaanites, primitive aborigines of the land of Canaan, we call them Africans because their blood relationship to the other inhabitants of the African continent, and this is true. All right, there were 11 Canaanite tribes living in the land of Canaan and surrounding it before the Black Israelites possessed it. And there's no need to, there's a redundant statement to call swarthy people. Remember, they came up with that label black because the Bible doesn't call them Black Israelites. The Bible just referred to them as Hebrew Israelites. Note Corinthians 2 Corinthians 11 and 22. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Okay? So it had nothing to do with blackness. Now I'm going to, now that we've, sorted all that out, it also tells you on page 84, it says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem in 70 AD. Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Israelite state with great slaughter during the period of the military governors of Palestine, which were now being ruled by white people, so-called white people, self-proclaimed, because Alexander set up Ptolemy. All right, and that's how because Alexander took over all of Greece, and they lightened it up and moved all the swarthy people out eventually and bred them out or lightened them up. Right? It says Titus put an end to the Israelite state with the great slaughter during the period of military governors of Palestine. Many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it had been estimated that over 1 million Judeans fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and the slavery, and the slave markets were full of Black Jewish or Judean slaves. That's how the so-called black people got into Africa, and that's their history in Africa that he didn't talk about. It was important for me to bring these facts out. All right, so let's go up to about the 13-minute and let him annihilate Esau Edom.
Morning when you come to, holding your hand, your protector. Oh, it's insidious. Uncle Sam is a serial killer. The son of Sam's got nothing on Uncle Sam.
Damn.
Uncle Sam is the most prolific, psychopathic, diabolical, demonic mass murderer in history.
This is true.
I mean, look at that poster again, that Uncle Sam poster, that I Want You poster. Think about that. You would think that a character who's supposed to represent the great democratic America would actually be asking the people, what do you want? Not demanding, I want you to go off into the meat grinder of World War I and World War II. Over 500,000 American soldiers killed in Europe and in Asia, thousands of miles from the United States. And then basically some 20-something years later, the same message is repeated. And it's heralded as a great quote. It's heralded as a great statement from John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Why? That's not how this works. Talk about gaslighting. Imagine if someone said that in a relationship. You know, I need you to do this and that and the other. And don't even ask me about what you need me to do for you. No, your government, your power structure hates you. But worse than hating you, they don't even respect you. And like I said, a major reason for that is that they have perfected the process of completely wiping out your memory. But the power structure has a memory.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand, that's what's really meant by history repeating itself. People think that this is some sort of natural law. No, it's not natural law. It's just the unchanged, consistent behavior of a predatory power structure. It's the law of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Meaning they've been doing the same thing for a very long time. And the system works for them. So they have no reason to change it. And they never will change it until you change. And that's why they want to make sure that you never know what's going on. They want to make sure that you never know what's been going on. And why they keep you basically like a crackhead. I'm serious. Just like a crackhead. The American population, you know, is like a crackhead. Extreme desperation for short-term gratification.
Yep.
Complete memory blackouts. No recall of past consequences of their actions. You know, mood swings, volatile.
And when you bring up Edomite history, they want to call it CRT, critical race theory, because it's so hurtful, it's so malicious and hateful and embarrassing. They don't want their children to know it. They want to not acknowledge that they raped, robbed, murdered their way into power, into wealth, and pass it on for generation and generation to their own.
Erratic, can't cope with reality, and you'll sell your dignity just to get some relief. That's why they don't respect you. The same way that a drug dealer doesn't respect a crackhead. Because they can treat you any kind of way, and you'll accept it. You'll accept it as long as you can get a hit of propaganda, a hit of entertainment, a hit of distraction, or what have you. Anything to just help you forget the reality that you live in. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the condition of a people will not change until they move to change it themselves. And that's why they've neutralized you, because otherwise history might not repeat itself. Because they're the ones who are making history repeat itself by just continuing to do what they've always done. You understand what I'm saying? See, this isn't cyclical, it's constant, uninterrupted, the oppression, the violence, the exploitation, the predation. This is all static, unchanging. You know, you say history repeats itself, it makes it sound like you're talking about a cycle, but it's not a cycle. It's not even a loop, it's a straight line. And it has never swerved, not even once. It's one scene, it's the same scene, year after year, decade after decade, and all they ever do is maybe change the lighting to make it look different, to make it look new. But nothing has changed. But you won't know that as long as you have no memory, as long as you have no actual memory. Not the implanted fake memories of the past that they put in your mind, but a real memory.
Which is false
history. You'll actually think that you're looking at something new because you don't remember. You don't remember that it's always been this way. And that's why they want you to be so desperate to forget. You know, it's like they say, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So the best way to be able to continue negative and destructive behavior into the future.
Yeah, I find it interesting that when it comes to the Holocaust and when it comes to 9/11 and things like that, which have questionable, well, what, you know, the whole motto is never forget. But when it comes to the 500 years of oppression, rape, rob, murder, robbery, theft, and oppression, we're told to get over it. Forget about it.
Is to try to falsify your history. I mean, most people don't even care about history in America. That's a fact. They're already just ignorant. But the ones who do have an interest in history, they're fed a fictitious history.
Yep.
So they're even worse than someone who's just ignorant. They're even worse than someone who knows nothing. Because it's actually better to just know nothing than to believe something false.
Giving an example, Italian people worshiping, Columbus Day, and Columbus was not an Italian. Columbus' real name was Cristobal Colon. All right, he was Jewish. He was a, Spanish. Come on, man. So there you go. That's just one example. All right. And we're not even going to talk about the evidence against the narrative about, 911.
The one who doesn't know anything can at least learn. They're at least empty, and information can be put in that emptiness. Whereas someone who already believes something false thinks he already has the knowledge, thinks he already has the information, and that makes him immune to learning.
And that's those wacky tacky Christians that Apostle Gabar is always talking about. All right, they're coming up there, with these notions of lies that they're sold on, and then the truth, it sounds so strange to them because it doesn't fit the narratives that they've been taught. But then their narratives don't fit either. The average Christian has a different doctrine from church to church.
But then, of course, there's also the fact that the history is so horrific, the history is so brutal, that there's already a built-in incentive to deny or to dismiss it.
There it is.
Because it can be absolutely soul-crushing to try to come to terms with. Ooh. Like I said, it's like finding out that your parent is the BTK killer. How do you process that?
And see, that's the thing with Edomites. The reality of what they've done and how they got their wealth is so disheartening that they don't want to hear about it. But we're going to let you hear about it because this is what's going to happen to you. This is Ezekiel 25 and 12. And it reads, "Thus saith the Lord power, because the Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended, and revenged himself upon them. Therefore thus saith the Lord power, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of the Dan shall fall by the sword, and I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in it. And they shall do in Edom according to my anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord power." Esau's got hell to pay. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Al Shai Bahasham Wakahak Wadash Kwam Yastarala Abad Babal.